Okay, hello everyone and welcome back. Raise your hand if this is your first Speak workshop. Welcome. All right, so my name is Megan Wing and I am the coordinator for Speak. Speak stands for Scientists for Public Engagement and Knowledge. And this is one of many workshops that we provide over the year. Our next one is the Public Speaking Workshop, which has been moved from February 2nd to February 9th. So please make sure you mark that change in your calendars. Make sure you sign in the back so I can collect your emails and sign you up for our mailing list so you can get all the updates of all our wonderful workshops coming ahead. So today is part two of two series of the visual storytelling, how to turn your science into a video. So if you missed the previous workshop or any other workshops from here on out, you can go to our website and watch all the previously recorded workshops to catch up. But without further ado, today we have a very exciting workshop, again with Joe, and it's going to be very technical, hands-on. I see that all of you have brought your computers, so that's very wonderful. So let's give him a warm welcome.
Awesome. Well, thanks for coming back, for those of you that come back, and for those that are new, thank you for coming and checking it out. Kind of like last time, if you guys have any questions during the process, just go ahead and shout them out at me, and then I'll do my best to answer those. I'm gonna talk a little bit, and then we're gonna dive right in. It's gonna be like super hands-on. I'm actually just gonna walk you through what it's like to edit a project. And did everybody get the files? Everybody has it? No? If you don't have the files, we'll connect right after we switch then.
If you don't have the files, you can download them on the Speak website, and I can help you.
Cool. Yeah, it is kind of a big file, but it kind of is what it is these days with video. So first, you guys all know me. I'm Joe, and I work here at UC Davis. For those who don't, maybe there's some listening on the Zoom. And I just make videos here. Oh, I have the wrong slide. Sorry about that. This is the one. Okay. Okay, so last week we talked about like shooting video, right? And what that looks like and going through that process. So now we're kind of in that mindset. We have all our footage. We went out, we did an interview, we shot B-roll, we have what we need, we kind of have this idea. The first thing we want to do, right, is bring in our footage. And I can't like emphasize enough how important it is to be like organized when you bring in your footage. Like if you're like, I've been here for 5 years, so I have 5 years worth of projects, and it's organized in a way that I can go back, hey, I shot that in May of 2014, I can go back, take a look at it, and pull it up, no problem. And so a big important part of that is all my files, they do get named as year with the 4-digit year, 2-digit month, 2-digit day, and a slug. And a slug is kind of like that one word description, right? So we talked about soil sequestration last talk, and so I would have named it like soil or something like that. And then what you do is you bring all your files into one folder, right? Everything lives together. And so this is kind of what that folder looks like. And so as you can see on there, we had we had 6 folders in there. You see the naming file for the main folder. That lives on your hard drive, or it lives on your desktop. For the record, I usually work off hard drives unless like it's a big project and I'm for some reason need some extra space or more speed or something like that. Then I'll work off my computer hard drive, but I usually do work off external drives. And then, so you can see we have audio, export, graphics, images, scratch, and video, all pretty self-explanatory. Any of your audio, including music, goes in there. Your exports will be when you're done, right? Sometimes I use that for images. And also, if I go out and shoot just pictures or anything like that, I will set up my project like this too. Always looks the same. And then I kind of keep it, I make this folder and I just keep it like right there on the Finder window, just so I can just open it up, copy and paste it over with all these in there. Graphics are going to have like that, your graphics, right? They're going to have, if you have a sample of lower thirds you'd like to use. Sometimes we'll use a version from Photoshop, so you just open that up in Photoshop. Anyways, that template lives in there. Any logos that you use, those all live in there for us as well. And if you got the folder you got, you'll see that you downloaded. It actually has, it's like a copy of what we have in there. So those graphics are in there if you do need a UC Davis logo. Those are available too in the marketing toolbox, which is marketingtoolbox.ucdavis.edu. Images, like I said, images will go in there. Scratch is kind of important. Scratch is like kind of contains that roadmap for your project, right? And so when you go to set up your project, and we'll walk through that, you want to point your Scratch just to here. And this is important because if you do change computers, say like, okay, I'm working on my laptop, then I go back to my office to work in my office, which I have a desktop there, I can take that drive and plug it right in and everything works fine, right? You can jump machines, no problem. Same thing if you're jumping platforms too, right? You can jump from Mac to PC in Adobe if you're using Adobe Premiere. So super important to set that. And then, of course, video will have all our video in there. Oftentimes there'll be subfolders in there, like I'll have camera 1, camera 2, and so on and so forth, stock footage, whatever. That'll all go in there. I can't stress how important it is to keep this organized, especially if you're working in an office where there's other people like that you're sharing. We have 3 senior video people that are producing videos, and then we have 4 other interns. And so everybody does the same because we're all sharing and picking stuff up all the time. Cool. Any questions?
Where are these files that you guys talked about? I'm sorry.
So there should be on the Speak website a link to a box link to a folder that has video files, kind of like sample files that we'll go through today to edit. So just quickly, like talking about like editing, right? So we're into editing. The program you use, not super important, right? Just use the one that works for you the best. I use Adobe Premiere. I like how it operates and works within the Adobe environment. A lot of people have switched over to Adobe Premiere, and it works well with After Effects, Illustrator files, PSDs, all that fun stuff comes in there really nice and easily.
How do you think it compares with Final Cut Pro?
They're just different. Final Cut Pro was the standard for a long time, and then a lot of people, then they came out with the kind of an older version of what's out now. When that came out, it kind of felt like it wasn't catering to pros anymore. And so a lot of people jumped to Adobe, and Adobe was running really fast and smooth back then. Maybe not so much now. But I've heard really good things about the newest version of Final Cut Pro, and especially if you're using MacBooks. I hear it works really well. It's pretty much affordable, right? It's like $300, I think, something like that. And where Adobe is it's a subscription, right? So you're paying, as students, you're paying like somewhere around $25 a month probably, or 20 if you just get Premiere. But I do like Premiere because it does handle multiple formats really easily, right? In the old days, and I haven't used Final Cut Pro in a long time, but you used to have to transcode your files. So if you had a file out of your camera that didn't match up with Final Cut Pro, you'd have to convert it to something that did. And that took a ton of time. But so Final Cut though and Adobe Premiere are probably the bigger ones among professionals. You get like Blackmagic DaVinci's out there. And then you have like some of you are probably more familiar with iMovie or Adobe Elements, Premiere Elements or something like that. Those are all fine. I actually don't think that there's like a big difference jumping from iMovie. I think iMovie is just like super confusing sometimes. I don't know if it's just because I haven't gone to it, but like there's different versions of it out there, and it can be kind of like, I get lost in there a little bit. But so if you're gonna learn a program, I wouldn't be, pick the one that's gonna be best suited for you. Again, Adobe is cross-platform, so as long as you can, put a drive into it and mount the drive, you can use it on either machine. It looks just the same as it does in the Mac as it does in the PC. And I also want to talk about machines, right? So if you have a MacBook Air, that might be tough to use to edit some stuff, right? It's a little underpowered, depending on your footage that you're shooting. But you just want to make sure that if you are like seriously going to edit, that you at least have 16 gigs of RAM, somewhere around there, and then maybe a quad-core processor. Graphics card, if you're on a Mac, you don't really have a choice. And if you're on PC, something like NVIDIA. Super technical, I guess. But, okay, so we have our editing system we want to use, right? We're going to download our footage. There are things out there that will help you ingest your footage, or programs out there. I just drag and drop from the Finder if I'm on the Mac, right? I just pull it in, no problem, and I put them in that folders. And this is the quick version of what we're going to do a little later. To pull it, and I'll show you guys how to pull it in. You pull it into Premiere. There's several different ways to do that. And then the first thing we're going to do, we're going to put together our A roll. That's our interview, right? And then after that, we lay our B roll, and we add some music. If you look in your folder, you have some music already in there. And if you missed last week's, there were some music options in there for you to go. I might have it up. It's right here, actually. Again, if you are interested in music, audioblocks.com has some great generic music, 99 bucks a year. Not a bad deal. And you can use those anywhere for as long as you need to. I like Audio Jungle a lot, 20 bucks a song. And then, I don't know if I had this one there last time, but this artlist.io, 200 bucks a year. They have some really good, solid songs on there. If you don't want to deal with copyright, just pay for a song. You don't have to worry about it. Clean. Cool. All right. So some things we're going to talk about when we do go into editing. We're going to talk about we're going to add some graphics and stuff like that. Graphics, I think, are super important. If you guys are on Facebook watching videos, you'll see those videos pop up that have graphics that come in. And the whole story is just told that way, right? You don't have to listen to it at all. Because like we talked about last week, 85% of people aren't listening to the videos, to the audio on Facebook. So it's a great tool. You can just see a quick, easy example. It's that easy, right? You can make it come in a bunch of different fancy ways you want. That's less important as making sure it's readable and helpful on there. We definitely want to make sure we close caption all our videos.
Question.
Yep.
So when you close caption, are you using software, or are you actually typing it out and then putting subtitles in? What's the easiest way to do that?
Okay, so the question is how are we closed captioning this, right? This actually comes at the end, and the easiest way I've found is I upload the video to YouTube and we transcribe it there. They have a great transcribing process, right? Like as you type, it pauses the video, stop typing, it plays. And so then it auto syncs it for you. I go through and give it a rough look, make sure everything syncs up okay, everything's spelled right, punctuation looks good. And then I just publish that and I download that SRT file. And so that SRT file will go on to Facebook or whatever platform you're using, Vimeo as well. And so you have that, and it's time coded to fit with everybody else. So that's the easiest way I found. And if you needed to have a version subtitle of your video, and what we call burned in captions, that means the captions are part of your actual Adobe Premiere project. You export it, the captions are on there forever and ever. You can actually import that SRT file into Adobe and lay your captions out over that. It doesn't look very good, but it definitely works. So, and it's a lot easier than creating title slides for each one. And so as a campus, as a university, if you do anything for the university, we have to make sure that we're compliant so that we do the captioning. So I just want to emphasize that. And it's just the right thing to do, right? You want everybody to experience your videos. As we go through this editing project, don't be afraid to cut. You guys all got this file. There is a transcript in there, and you can kind of look at the transcript and see that there's a lot in there, right? And I use just a very little bit amount of it. So you're gonna have to cut stuff as you go through. You wanna save your projects all the time. Adobe can be glitchy at times, and depending on your machine, it can be more glitchy. So make sure you're saving constantly. There is an autosave feature on there these days, but it's always a good idea. And then we want to make sure when we export that we export it in a way that works. So here's an example, and we'll walk through this. So this is what your export window looks like. And it's, there's only a couple of slides, or a couple of parts of this that you're changing, right? You can see the resolution, which is kind of right at the top, that width and height. And then everything else will probably kind of fall into place depending on your preset, and we'll go through that. But at 24 frames per second, in this case, 23,976. And the other thing that's super important on this page I want to point out is, thank you, is this bitrate, right? This bitrate is going to be like the largest factor in determining your file size and the quality of the video. Not so much your resolution, right? You can drop it down to like 720 and you're not going to get much lower file size, which you can see right there. So this bitrate is essentially, think about that as just like how much data is going to be in your video, the quality of it, right? This is probably the highest I usually go for bit rates, depending on, it is at 10, I'm sorry, here, I don't know if that's better. Yeah, so it's at 10. That's pretty high for what I do. It just depends where it's going. Like if it's gonna go on Facebook, I tend to have a higher bit rate because Facebook has a pretty large compression. And it's still not gonna look that great no matter what, but I try my best. And then I usually go between 8 and 10. We wanna make sure it's a 2-pass. This might help you get a little bit smaller file sizes as well. Again, we'll go through that. I just wanted to like point that out right now before we dive into it. Cool. Any general questions you guys have? All right. Cool. So did everybody get a chance to download that file?
If you don't, I have it on a flash drive here too.
How big is it? I mean, because it keeps loading.
2 gigs.
2 gigs.
Okay. Perfect. All right. Cool.
And at any point, you can raise your hand and I'll come and help out as well.
Yeah, so we're gonna go through this, and then once I wrap up too, if you guys want to take some more time to work on it, like I'll be here to ask questions. If you have specific questions, I will walk around as well as we get towards the end. So diving in, and if you guys want to do this as we go along, that's probably a really good idea. First thing I did is I opened Premiere, right? And what version am I in? 2018. They're like pretty similar, right? I'm not gonna do anything that I think that's specific to 2018 that's not found in some of the older versions. As you see, I am working off an external drive here. And again, I usually do that. You wanna make sure that your external drive is pretty quick though. So 7,200 RPMs, you'll see those numbers 7,200 or 5,400, go to 7,200. Okay, so the very first thing I do, I'm gonna create a project, right? New project. And again, I have my folder here. It's in my hard drive. There, I have all my folders. I usually just put my transcripts. You guys all should have got a transcript, and I have a quick script that has all the references. But everything's in there, right? I'm gonna name it just like that one. It can be the same name, no problem. I don't remember the date, so I'm just gonna put a recent one.
You need to extract the files first, right? Or does it?
No.
No?
Wait, what do you?
Extract like the zip?
Oh yeah, open the zip. Yeah, you guys should have a folder. That's a given, right? You guys want to get into there. Yeah. So if you have the zip, go ahead and open the zip up. Right now I'm just open Premiere, and I'm going into I'm just creating our new project. So I clicked open Premiere, hit new project, titled it. I'm gonna navigate to where it needs to go. And this just lives in, so here's my folder that I usually keep just on a drive, just so I can copy and paste it. Cool, and I just save it in there, so it's in that first part of that root folder. So I navigate there by hitting browse. So at this point, the one thing you want to do now is hit scratch disk, right? And this is what I was talking about, setting up your scratch disk so it points to that folder as well. So you hit browse, it opens the folder where you navigated and you saved your file. And then just go on Scratch. Good thing is, it's gonna go there automatically from here on out, right? So I'm just gonna hit browse again. Did I change something? No. And then you can just hit enter, because it's gonna navigate there automatically. You do it for all of them. Cool. And that's pretty much it for that step, right? So now we're creating a project. And you just hit OK. Cool. So now that we're in Premiere, I'm just gonna walk you guys around a little bit. Somebody else was using this. So the layout's different. Or maybe because I'm on the screen. Okay, so yours does not look like this, I'm guessing, right? No. Those workspaces. Okay, so yours is going to look way different. I think mine's getting a little kind of tangled up with the projector. Yep.
Were you setting the scratch disks to the same folder as your actual Adobe file, or were you setting it inside of the scratch subfolder?
Yeah, that was in the scratch subfolder. Yep. And if you don't, it'll just set it up in there. It'll create two folders, right? They'll say Adobe Premiere, Preview, and something else. Okay, so I'm just gonna put this here. So yours kind of looks something like this, right? It's a little different. Than mine. See if I can't get it to come out. Yeah, it's not going to want to do it. Okay, so essentially what you're going to have a timeline. You're going to have two windows right here on the bottom, right? So you'll have project over here and timeline over there. Oh wow, this looks all different now. Yeah. This is my timeline here. Okay. It's just that you should see two separate windows essentially, and your tools bar would be over as well, right? Separating them. For some reason, I just can't get that to go. Here we go. And so you see, you move all your windows like this. So yours probably looks something like this, right? Okay, cool. So this is like your starting place. This is your standard editing screen. When you come in, as you start working through it, you're going to customize it, and you kind of can go through different windows up here in workspaces and kind of pick what you like. You see, I have one labeled for me. That one's labeled for like multiple screens though. And they are up here as well. Up here you have, so the important one is, oh, I swapped them. So your project, I'm just gonna close that guy. So your project's kind of over here, right? This is your main folder. This is where you would import stuff like that. This is that's your home bin for stuff. Up here is your source monitor, right? This is like a preview of stuff. This program monitor is like what's live on your timeline, right? And this is your timeline. Pretty straightforward. And the first thing you want to do is when you have your stuff is you're going to want to import your video files, right? There's a couple different ways you can go about it. You can click and drag straight from the Finder, drag it into there. So if I pulled up my Finder, I could just drag the B-roll in, right? That's one way to do it. Another way is you could double click in that project file and just navigate to it. You could Command I, same thing. And then last you can go File, Import. So tons of different ways. I don't use one more than the other. It's just whatever kind of easy. So typically I do import them in the folders themselves just to stay organized. By the end of the project though, like where I'm just importing like one-off things, it does look kind of like a mess in my project folder. But as much as I can, I do try to stay organized there. So I'm also going to import in that stock footage as well. And so I mentioned audioblocks.com for stock footage. There's also one called Video Blocks, which is, again, $99 a year for stock footage. I don't know if I got this from Getty. So there's other different places for stock footage. Everybody with me? No. Nope. All right. Where are you at?
Which folders did you import?
I imported, so I went to video folder. And there's interview B-roll and stock.
But could you just click on the video and then drag the whole
You,
thing
you totally could. Yeah. That's. It's just one less bin to have to navigate at that point. Because I'll show you what I do usually next. Cool. So typically I have like 2 screens going, right? And it's much more spaced out. But even then, I do tend to, as you see, if you double click that and it opens up another, tab right there with all the footage. That's new actually from 2018. I do like having it up there. So if we did have that video folder, it would open a video tab and you'd have to open those folders within there to go get to them. So, okay, so we have our footage in there, right? And if you double click on these, it'll go there too again. The very first thing I always do is I go to my interview and I start with the interview. You guys actually have a nice transcript in there, and I use a service called Trint.com, Trint. It's pretty solid, I think. I mean, it's an auto transcribe. It's like a computer generated transcription. But it tends to be pretty close. For a while, we were paying like another service that uses people, and they're not too far off, to be honest. So it's a really good, quick, and easy one, and it's shareable, allows you to highlight stuff, and is really good. I'll transcribe something if I like shot it and then I haven't, it's been a while since I've shot it before I edit it, and I have to kind of go back and kind of remember. Or if I have multiple interviews, or if I just have a really long one, I will transcribe it. And it's you can pay by the hour, so it's $15 per hour, so per hour of interview, or whatever you're trying to transcribe. Okay, so I double-clicked that and we opened up our source monitor, right? This source monitor, again, is just kind of a preview pane of that clip that you selected in the main bin, or whatever bin you have open. Cool. This is good. You see we have timelines right here, right? And so this comes in handy when you have that transcription, because on that transcription there are some time codes right there on that side. So it kind of tells you where some cameras have a running time code, so you'd have to just add it to whatever's there. This time code to whatever's here, but this one started from scratch, right? So we're at 0, 0. So I'll just walk you through like how we're going through stuff, right? Let me see if I can show you here.
Did you say that the program does the transcription for you?
Yeah. Yeah. It is $15 per each hour. I'm trying to get you guys some sound. That's not it. No sound. Okay. That's all right. Hey, Megan, do you know how we can get some sound out of here?
Sound?
Yeah. Let me see.
Should automatically. turned up on your computer?
Yeah, well, it's going through the HDMI there.
This. I think.
No.
It should. How about we try unplug, replug?
Let me see, maybe I can just go out through here then.
The time, giving you input energy and
Okay, we'll run with that.
Okay.
So if you do use Trent, like if they do have an accent, it can be a little tough. But when I transcribed Jorge's here, it didn't seem like that bad, actually. Okay, so as we're scrubbing through this,
protein.
there's a couple different keys. You guys all have this handout here, right? That has some quick keys in it. A lot of these you'll develop over time. I probably will use like a quarter of these. They're all there for you, and there's probably more I should use. It's just like what I've been used to. If you do look at the I, J, K, and L keys, right? Those are helping you.
Energy that we use every day.
I mean, the JKL is L is forward, right?
Every
K is stop. J is backwards.
so
So I do use those a ton as written there. The whole goal here, though, is to kind of start pulling sound bites that we want to use, right? And so to do that, we want to select a part of this interview clip. And what we're going to do is we're going to select an in point and we're going to select an out point, right? That's how we're pulling down a clip that we want to use, right? So I'm just going to put a random one. I hit I, and you see that little highlighted part pop up right there, right? This is our selection, what we're going to pull down. I'm going to let it play for a few minutes, or a few seconds.
That you can make it can have an important impact.
Cool. And then I'm going to hit O for out. And you see only that little portion is selected. So that's like say that is like a quote that we really like. Okay, this has got to go in. What you're going to do is you're going to click and drag that to your timeline. And so this is just one way of creating a new timeline, right? We clicked and dragged on the picture, and it created a timeline, and the settings are exactly what the settings of the file is. So if you shot this at 1080, that's what it created your settings at, right? Okay, now say that, let me get my timeline back. This thing really doesn't like me, huh? I think I heard a question there.
When I try to drag it gets longer or shorter or moves back and forth within the original video file, but I can't seem to drop it into time.
Interesting.
There's something. Can I watch it?
Yeah. I'm going to go through it again real fast. Oh, not real fast. I'm going to go through it again, though. But I do want to go back, take a step back. And so that was one way to create a timeline, right? And maybe this might help, too, is if we create a timeline specific to settings that we want, right? You're like, hey, I need to have a 1080 file for sure. So that's what I'm going to do. So if you just, control click, I double. Oh, you can't do it here. There we go. Yeah. So I control click in our project window right there. You could also go up to File, New, and record a sequence, right? And that is like our canvas for our video, kind of what we just created. You want to navigate to digital SLR. That's like the most generic sequence setting out there, right? And navigate down, hold down 1080p, click on 1080p 24. Again, we're shooting everything in 24 frames per second just because it looks good. We want all our stuff to look good, right? And so if you look in the settings tab, you see everything's 1920 by 1080. We're at square pixels. Pretty straightforward. The only time I come in here is change is if I shot 4K and I change the size of the canvas. That'd be the only reason why to go in there. This footage, I believe, is, I don't remember what it is. It might be 720, it might be 1080. But that's all you do. And then you have a timeline, right? Okay, so again, we're back in here. We find the clip that we want, like a soundbite. We're gonna hit that in point, that I for in, and that's the clip that's the start of what we want. He just said something really, really good. That's where we're starting.
To do that, there are things that you have to do. You need to.
All right, and that's out. That's what we want. We want that little section of it, right? So I hit O for out. And so that, you can see it highlighted right there. It's really, really small. I'm gonna hit my plus sign to zoom into that timeline. And you can see it right there. And I'm like, all right, that's what I want. I'm gonna click on the image, right? I'm on him. I'm gonna drag that down into my timeline. Okay, so this is saying the footage is different size, right? This footage is probably 720. And it's asking me, hey, do you want Adobe to change your sequence settings, and your sequence is that canvas we talked about, to match the picture, or do you not want to do that? I'm gonna say, I'm gonna keep my existing settings. I'm gonna keep the settings I need, right? Hopefully people are catching it. All right, and you see, all right, I was smaller file size, right? That's okay. Are we still able to drag footage onto it or no? Okay, cool. Sometimes this is a weird setting. If you can't drag it, sometimes this is checked off, right? Oftentimes, for some reason, it happens to my audio files a lot. Like this is checked off. So just make sure that's checked on. It's like a weird thing, and I don't even know like how to Google for that problem, but I figured it out somehow.
So I have no idea if I did that right, but the second that I put I and O and then I dragged it, didn't ask me anything about, didn't come up with that warning message. It just put them side by side.
Yeah, so yeah, you'd already created a timeline or sequence that in your timeline that matched those settings already. So the settings of your sequence just matched the file. So that's just like, it's just something you might have come across, right? If you have different footage from different cameras, just know if you hit yes, it's gonna change your sequence settings. So in this case, if it does, and you're like, oh man, I got like smaller footage that I need to make a larger size, there's a couple different ways you can do that, right? So we can go into our effect controls, and you notice like that, whatever's here, whatever's selected here, you can alter parts of it up here in the effect controls, right? And pretty much you can see scale, right? And so we see that this is smaller than our sequence settings. So we just make it larger. Actually, is that? So I made it twice as large, right? I only need to go to 150 to make it fill the frame. So you could do something like that. Upscaling is kind of like tough to do depending on the camera you have. So our cameras can usually handle it. Some other cameras cannot. But like when you're working with video files, especially if you're getting it from somebody, like you have you had a friend out shooting some video on a research project, right? You need to use that person's footage. Like you don't even know what you get back, right? You get back tons of different kinds of formats and sizes. You just do your best you can, right? I'm gonna delete this because I wanted to make delete. Just click on it and hit delete. It didn't work. That's the one that should work. Okay, so all right, say you did set up your sequence, right? You need to change some settings. If you go up to sequence settings, you can do that. You can change it all in here. I'm just gonna create a new sequence. And again, if you wanna be super organized, you can retitle your sequences. I don't normally put the date on these sequences right down here. I just kind of put like a slug, right? Or something that's kind of like a one-word identifier of what I want it to be. Just so I have an idea. Any questions?
What was the frame size of the sequence you wanted?
So I think we're just gonna do it by dragging in the project. So I've created a new sequence in here just to have it, and I just set the 1080p DSLR setting. You guys see that autosave popped up? That does happen pretty frequently, but I am still constantly hitting Command S to save.
Can you open your sequence so I can just see that?
Yeah.
How did you create a new sequence?
So I actually just controlled click, new item sequence, and then I have my DSLR. You can also go to File, New, and click Sequence. And then I just, I titled it something and I hit OK.
Can I share a trick?
Sure.
So if I'm unsure about my sequence, then I just, when it prompts me to make a new sequence, I don't do it. And I just right-click my file, and then like the video I want, and then I hit new sequence from clip. So now I know exactly it matches what I want, the settings I want, and I don't have to do anything custom. It just takes it right into the clip.
Cool. And that's doing the same thing as if like you were to drag it, the in and out point straight from your source into there. Whatever works for you. As long as you get a video at the end that you really like, how you got there is not as important, right? Okay. Cool. So now I'm gonna like start going through actually like making this project, right? Again, I find his interview, which I've labeled Jorge interview. Cool. And I'm just starting at the beginning, right? I actually have this little cheat sheet of what this video would look like. Actually, let's watch the video. So this is the final export of that video, right?
Well, tell me what you have for breakfast this morning. Probably you have a bagel. You like to eat your pizza. You like to eat your pasta. Wheat is so important because it provides roughly 1/5 of all the calories and all the protein that people consume every day. Every small improvement that you can make in wheat can have an important impact in the life of a lot of people. Our objective is very simple. We want better wheats in everything. We want better quality, we want better nutrition, we want less allergenicity of wheat for people that have allergies to wheat. We want more resistance to pathogens, we want more efficient use of the resources that we use. But it's a fight that we continue to fight. The pathogens continue to evolve and we need to develop new resistance. So we are permanently fighting pathogens that also want to eat the wheat. It makes you resilient. And in these times of climate change, resilience is important. So you need to be able to respond to changes fast. And without research, it's difficult to do it. These new varieties that we develop have 10 times more dietary fiber. And as you know, dietary fiber is good for your health, but sometimes it's nicer to eat a white bread. So this will allow us to make a bread that is not a whole wheat and still will have a lot of fiber. To create these varieties, we have to do a lot of work first. First, we need to create a way to detect those mutations. So we recently been working for the five last years in a technology that allows us to sequence all the genes of wheat and to find all the mutations that we have in our mutant populations. And we have created a database that contains 10 million mutations in 90,000 genes of wheat. So we can find the mutations on any gene that we want. I think that what keeps me up is the sense that your work is meaningful, that you are doing something that will be helpful for a lot of people, that you're making something that with your life that will help other human beings. It's a fantastic job.
Cool. So ours is going to look a little different than this. This was for the Innovator of the Year award last year. And this is like, I chose this because it's pretty typical of kind of the stuff that I do that maybe you might come across and do, right? Where you have an afternoon to shoot with somebody, right?
So how did you do the audio there? Because you talked about that last time, because he's outside, and it sounds to me like, very nice. You could hear the movement. Is that a clip?
Yeah, so he has a lapel mic on, a lavalier mic. It is clipped up right here to him, and it's tough because, so if, I mentioned last week that I like to use a boom a lot, it wouldn't be an option here because the way the frame is, we'd have to come up over the top of him, right, pointing down, and then you would just pick up nothing but that wheat moving, right? So we did have to have a clip up there, and he has a, I believe he has a vampire clip on there. It's kind of hard to see. So to make that screen big, I just hit the accent button, makes your screen big. I use that a ton. It's kind of hard to see, but he probably has a clip on right here. And it's not one of the ones that like an alligator clip, right? That just kind of clips over. We call it a vampire clip. It has like two little spikes in the back. Kind of just like go through the clothes and sit there really nicely. And that's how you get that. You get that mic close to his mouth, right? so you can get the sound. If you do watch the interview, we're probably joking a bit about hiding the porta potty in the background. He didn't really want the porta potty in their shot, so I had to put him right in the middle so it covered it.
What's the keyboard shortcut for maximizing the frame?
It is that accent key. I don't know if there's probably a name for it that I don't know.
It's like a squiggly white.
That's less technical than my name. But, yeah, so it'll make it bigger for you. And I use it a ton, especially if I happen to be editing on a laptop. Okay, so you guys watch that. Ours is going to be a little different. We're going to take out some of that middle part. We're going to add some text instead. But that front part's going to be pretty much the same, right? We're going to navigate through this. So you guys all have that transcription. And what I have done is, you guys don't have this file. I went through the transcription and just pulled out all the quotes for it with time codes. Okay, so you can see that there are these time codes, right? So 00599. And so the way this is broken down, right, is, all right, this is the missing one. So 00, you see the time code here too. 00 means your frames, right? So video is all about frames, right? How many frames do you have in a second? In our case, we have 24, right? 24 frames make it equal a second. Then we have seconds right next to it, minutes, and hours. Right? So at the very beginning of our thing, we can just pop in, paste that time code, and it should go to it. No, I didn't want to go to it, did it?
Is that the transcription? Is that what this was, $15 an hour?
Yeah. Yeah, it's an hour of interview time though, right?
Hour of interview?
Yeah. Not an hour of like somebody doing it. So like his interview was, I don't remember how long, but it wasn't very long. It's maybe like 20 or 30 minutes. And so I didn't use my whole credit in that, right? I just used 20, 30 minutes of that hour.
That's really cheap.
Yeah, it's great.
Can you just do that through the program?
Yeah, through Trint.com, TRINT.com. Yeah, it's super helpful. Okay, so this guy is not doing what I want to do. I gotta add another 0, I think. There we go. Nope. Okay, I'm just going to go there manually. For some reason, it's not going. Okay, so I'm going to go to... oh, okay. Never mind. I know why that's not doing what it's doing. So that transcription, it's not including frames, right? It's just including seconds. This is the last one, right? So we want to put a 00 at the end. Okay, so that's just how to navigate. Like if you have a transcription and you want to get to that spot in time with that time code, which on there, that's a really quick and easy way to go through it, right? So it's saying it's at 5 minutes and 59 seconds, and then 00 frames, right? Because it doesn't count frames. Okay, so, and this is essentially my script, right? I just took quotes I liked. I copied the whole paragraph because I wanted to make sure I keep those time codes. If you are using Trint, that website, they add time codes throughout. Like it'll give you the time code for where you want. And I just highlighted the parts that I want in there. Okay, so this is how I kind of like break things down, right? So I'm just looking for that quote. So it starts with will tell me. Oops. So I'm in my source monitor here, right? I'm gonna hit in just because I'm thinking what I want is pretty close to this timeline, or to this time code.
Well, tell me what you have for breakfast this morning. Probably you have a bagel. You like to eat your pizza. You like to eat your pasta. So people eat wheat in.
I don't remember the whole quote. Cool. So it's right after pasta. So it's actually pretty close to the correct part right there, right? So if I want to give them a little breathing room, and I'm just using the arrow keys to move over. You see that little blue playhead moving around? Just to give it a little bit of space. And I'm going to hit I again. So hit I. And say you're like right up close to like a soundbite, right? If you click this little audio waveform there, you can kind of see the audio waveform, right? You can kind of see right when he starts talking. And that's just by clicking this little audio waveform right there. You want to go back to video, you click that little video clip. You can bounce between the two. Now, we'll get into this with B-roll, but if I just wanted to pull the video down of that, you click and drag on that video clip, right? If I wanted to just pull the audio for it, click and drag on that audio file, and then you just get the audio file separate. We use that a ton with B-roll.
If you pull it all down, can you disassociate the audio from the video within there?
You certainly can, right? So the question is, can we disconnect the audio and video files once it's in the timeline? If you click on it, they are together, right? If you want to unclick it, you just right click on it, control click. I'm doing the 2-finger tap, hit unlink, and they're unlinked. You can delete one or the other. And Command Z is what I'm hitting to just undo everything, right? All right, so that is the first clip of this. So I typically give it like a little bit of breathing room, right? So I'm starting like right around a second. Depending on the song as well. Some people, okay, and this is like really important. Some people have a different process of starting, right? Like some people need to find a song first before they can dive into editing, right? They want to edit to a song. I'm always just like, I need an intro, right? I need a way to get into it. And so sometimes that includes a song, sometimes that doesn't. You got to find your process how you want to start it though. And finding a song can be tough. There's a lot of music out there, depending on what library you're using. But in this case, we already know what we want. So that's our first clip. And so
Tell me what you have.
this is reflected in our timeline. Right there to go. So we're pretty off to a pretty good start right there.
Where is that audio waveform?
If you hit, so if you click on that little audio waveform squiggly line. I wish I could make that. I guess I can make it bigger here. Yeah, it's right here.
If you hit I and O to put your markers and then you decide, oh wait, I want to move my marker, is there any way to move it or delete it, redo it without dragging the area that you marked? Does that make sense?
So I'm not exactly sure, but I think I might answer it anyways. I think I might be able to. Okay, so say you get it down here in like, all right, say like, I cut out early, right?
Yeah.
And I pull it down for some reason. I just, mistake, right? And you get to the end.
Have a bagel. You like to eat your pizza.
And so, I cut it out. What you can do is you can drag and pull. So if you hover down here, you see how my cursor turns into that red bracket with an arrow?
Yeah.
So then you can click and drag that out. I'm gonna make that big for you guys. And if you guys wanna make these things bigger, you can do it by just hovering on the lines in between. And so that's one way to do it as well, right?
So,
And I'm always using those waveforms to see like where audio starts and stop. That is like one of the biggest, most helpful things for me at least. I'm just gonna make these bigger. I always have these big for some reason. Okay, so I'm just maximizing again with that little squiggly accent. And cool. Everybody kind of with me still?
Wait, I'm sorry, Sandra, can you see the audio for the main picture that you have up there too, or no?
For this one or for this one?
For that one, when you're choosing
Oh.
your files and selecting your start and stop point.
Can I see this? So like if I,
Yeah, so you can pick with the audio, with visualizing the audio file there easily too.
yeah. So I mean, so you could do it through here.
Oh, but you can't see them both at the same time?
No. So if you do select in this format, like it'll transfer over, of course, when you go to select it all.
Okay.
Yeah. So one thing I do as well, like if I don't transcribe something, I go through the interview and I create subclips. Subclips are essentially this right here, right? But they're being saved in our project folder. And they're kind of helpful in that you can like name them as something you want, like as a quick reminder. And I pretty much do it on almost every project I go through, right? So I'm like, so if I select my in and out point here, I know I want this. I would actually hit Command U, or you can go to, what's that clip? Yep, clip, make subclip, Command U again. And then I can just say, I can slug it to something I want. You know, like as something reminds me, you know, you like bagels or whatever, pizza. And that's what he's saying, right? You want to make sure that this box is unchecked. I'm actually not entirely sure why this box exists, but what it does, it'll restrict your file to whatever you've chosen here. And most times I might have to expand it or, you know, or, well, expand is pretty much the only time it would really restrict you. And just like give yourself that flexibility, right?
Is that saving a subclip function only available on the main video, or can you click down in your sequence and save a part of your sequence as a subclip?
You can make a subclip from your sequence. Actually, it's not exactly a subclip at that point, but like if you have everything down in your sequence, you know, like down here, you're like, oh, I'm gonna save this for later because it doesn't fit right now. You can drag it over into there, and it would be in there. So it's not exact. It's a subclip, but it's not like through the subclip process. And then you can see the hard part is always figuring out where it saved your subclip. All right, and I always thought it was just like the last folder you were in, but it didn't do that. So it just saved my subclip in my main project folder there. And if you go through, they'll all be there. And eventually I will create a bin. So I'll control click, new bin, and I'll name it subclips. And I'll just have it in there, you know, and they'll all live in there. For now, it's gonna, I'll put them in that main project folder. Oops. Okay. If you are on your timeline, and this could happen with your interviews, right? If you happen to double click that clip on your timeline, it's going to open up in the source monitor. And so you'll zoom out and you'll try to do some stuff with it, and like it changes it down here. And like say you did that, I'm hitting plus and minus to expand that. It would just like erase stuff there. So in interviews, it's kind of tough because that shot looks the same throughout all of it. So just be aware of that. And again, all that's happening is instead of being in, this is my interview, the one that we're taking clips from. And I'm in here and I just mistakenly double click that. This window now is showing a preview of what's on my timeline. So just be kind of aware of that. Don't be kind of, just be aware. Okay. So I'm going to zoom in on here. All right, so let's go back to our script. And you can kind of see, like, as you see the time codes, like I'm jumping around, right? I'm at 5 minutes, and now I'm going back to 1 minute and 43 seconds. So my interview is jumping all over the place as far as finding the quotes that I fit, right? So in video, you don't have that luxury of always paraphrasing, you know, that a writer would have, right? Or being able to explain in that sense. So we're trying to find the best quotes that really articulate what the person is saying. Specifically when we're talking about, like, in this case, like a researcher, we really want to highlight his work and what he's doing and show him in the best light. And then specifically when it comes to science as well, like we got to put it in a way that people understand. So we're constantly looking around to find the best quotes that fit that and make that work. All right, so I'm going to go to... Again, I'm just going to copy this time code to make it easy for me to go find it. Pasting it, and I'm adding 2 zeros. And you can see it takes me right to where I need to go. He's going to say okay first, I think.
Okay.
There you go. And I want, it sounds like I'm going to make the whole soundbite, but I'm going to go from every day, from with wheat to every day. Again, this is the time maybe I go into here, into this little audio waveform, just to make sure I know where I am.
Width is so important because it...
Okay, so that's a good thing. So he stumbles in the beginning, right? People do that all the time. And to no fault of their own, it's just kind of what happens.
Width is so...
So he says wheat a couple times, so I'm just navigating to that second wheat, right?
Width is so...
I'm going to go back to my video.
Width is so important because it provides roughly 1 1/5 of all the calories and all the protein that people consumes every day.
Cool, and I'm out. I hit that O button right there.
Well, you can't fix the stutter right that's in the middle, right? Because you have a full shot of it unless you want to.
So yeah, so that's a good question. So the question is like, can we fix that stutter? Yeah, we can. I mean, maybe this one might be tougher because it's like that. But anytime somebody says like or like or they repeat a word, like I do try to take that out because in this case, you saw the original video. It's covered with B-roll, right? It's like 85% B-roll, and so that's how we get rid of that, right? We make that cut, and all of a sudden it's a jump cut, what we call, and it would be noticeable if you showed it in the interview. But if you put some B-roll over that, nobody knows any better. So I don't remember. I think I might have took that out.
What if it would be inappropriate to put B-roll over to mask that cut? Like, what if you really didn't want to put B-roll?
Yeah.
You still need to cut out that stutter.
Yeah.
Now, would you just cut between the two, or something?
Yeah. So the question is, what would happen if I didn't have any B-roll for that? And morph cut was brought up. I have actually never had a case where I got morph cut to work, like to look good. It looks so weird, right? And I've seen and so morph cut, what it does, in theory, it's supposed to be able to, if you have somebody just standing there looking, it should blend it to where you can't tell there's a cut, right? So like some sort of algorithm within there. I've never seen it look good. All the Adobe videos do, I just think they're faking it because it doesn't work. So what I would do is, so we shoot in 4K, right? And that's super important because what I can do is I can punch in, right? And that's my cut. So I go, I'll just show you an example, right? So I'm like, I need to get rid of, so I'm gonna get rid of that laugh because it just doesn't work or something like that, or maybe it's taking too much time. And so to cut, I hit C, right? And then I just drag that over. Click on that empty space and you hit delete and it butts them up together.
What if you want to add a
Say it again?
What if you wanted to add a change in audio
Like just like a ton.
to cut but not put them back?
Yeah, so depending on what you use, if you use music, you usually could get away if it's quiet enough. What I would normally do if like, okay, I need some space there, you're gonna have to use B-roll, right, to cover that space up. I would take a quiet section of this interview to add that right in this space. So it's ambient sound filling that.
So you just did it and I missed it, but how do you separate the two?
Yeah. All right, I'm gonna walk right back through that, and I'm gonna answer your question still though. We're getting into that. Okay, so I'm like, oh, I need to cut this space out, right? I'm gonna hit C, which is my razor tool. You can see it change right over here. I use that tool a ton, right? Because you're cutting a lot. And then get my little arrow, my bracket arrow right there. I'm sure there's an appropriate name for it. I just call it that. And I'm gonna drag, right? I'm dragging, and I'm looking at this audio waveform, right? Like that's where he starts talking again. So I have it spaced up because I don't have any B-roll to cover, so I have to make this match. Now I have two separate files on this clip, right? Two separate clips on this timeline. And if you play it, you notice that his head's in a different position, right? So you have a different, that's noticeable. That's super noticeable. I guess what we're gonna do is make it even more noticeable, but in a way that's accepted, right? So I actually just zoom in, right? If we use 4K footage, that means your footage is twice as large as standard HD, right? So that gives you some resolution to play with. And I think that's really great. Your phones shoot 4K, so anytime you can shoot that, that's super handy. I would just go in like around 40%. Right, so I scaled in there. And in this case, I'm adjusting the position, right? You have your positions, it's adjusting height and width. And so I do something like this. It works a little bit better.
Probably you have a bagel.
Maybe sometimes you're closer, but that's like, that's how we get around that, right? If we can't cover it. And we do that a ton. Specifically, like when people are just talking to the camera, like they just have a message to say, but we know we need to cut, or if it's a long message, we're cutting in and out all the time like that. And it really helps.
You just have to accept a little bit of loss of resolution.
Yeah, but if you're shooting 4K and you're on a 1080 timeline, there's no loss, right? Like you're golden. You can go up to 200%, so you're doubling the size of it, and you're fine. Depending on your camera, like so we shoot on these nice fancy cameras, right? We have some resolution to give there. Like it's hardly noticeable, especially once you get onto Facebook or YouTube. Like that compression kind of like is an equalizer in a sense. Okay. Everybody with me? Kinda? Enough? Like, the only way to learn this is to dive into it, right? So I'm hoping this is just a good primer. If you have any specific questions, ask them. Yeah.
So if I want to separate two video clips,
Yeah.
how do I do that? If I want to add a second clip,
What do you mean?
but then wasn't that cut out? I have two clips that I currently have matched back to back, and I want to.
Oh, okay. Got you. All right, so I'm going to drag a second clip down into here, right? This is our next line, I believe. So I'm clicking it, dragging it, and it's butted up like that right now, right? That's your problem? Is they're butted up together? So just to separate it, I just pull and drag a little bit. Sorry, I'm on a trackpad, but like that. So you just click and drag apart.
My screen looks different than yours. I don't know why. So I don't see. I don't see the little picture of him down there. It doesn't look as big. And when I press C, it doesn't do anything.
Oh,
I don't know what this is either.
okay.
I have no idea. So.
Probably you have a bagel, you like to eat your pizza, you like to eat your pasta. But it's so important because it provides
Okay, so we have our second clip on there, right? There's a little bit of space in there. I think that's a good thing. So the space. One thing you want to notice, and this is maybe getting a little ahead of ourselves, but it might be hard to hear, but you can kind of, there's a noticeable audible, it's audible to where like the clip ends, right?
your pasta. But it's so
So like, I don't know if you guys could hear that a little bit, but I'm gonna go full screen real fast. So those are things we want to get rid of, right? Obviously, you can kind of see in the waveform that he starts to say something else. So I would just trim that out real quick. But it's kind of hard to see, but there is a white line right here in the middle. Oops. So I just like put that clip in my source monitor, right? That's how that happens all the time. If you hover over in it, there's like that white line. It's kind of in the middle. It's kind of hard to see, especially when you have it selected. But that's like your volume control, right? So I can make it much louder.
you like to eat your pasta.
Right, and if I had my meters, there they are right there. So this is just regular, normal, not changed. You can see your meters right here kind of popping up.
It's so important because it provides
You drag that all the way up, that controls your meters again.
roughly one.
You can see they're a little
1/5
higher
of
right
all
there.
the color.
So to fix that little drop off, that little line we can edit it, right? We can make it, you see, we can raise the volume, we can lower the volume. We can do that in sections too. So if I hit P, which is my pen tool, you guys can see that selected right there. I'm gonna click on that little piece of that white line. You can see a little diamond pop up there. It's kind of hard to see, but it's blue right there. Click another one. So we have two, and drag it down. That's a fade out. It fades that audio out, right?
Your pizza. You like to eat your pasta.
Little less noticeable. There's like that hard fall off right there. That's
How do you get it from down the right-hand corner to the top right-hand corner?
like this, or
Yeah, so you're putting all your pieces together down your right-hand corner,
yep.
right? And then you were actually looking at it up there in the top right. How do I get all that up there? How can you do that?
To be able to see this up here,
Yeah.
that should be there already. This is your program monitor. If you're not seeing that, if you go up to Window and you click Program. Yeah, Program Monitor, and then whatever sequence you have. Cool, okay. Full screen is that that little squiggly line, the accent tool, right above tab, right next to the 1. Yep, just press it once. And depending on what screen you're clicked on, it goes up and down, big and small. Super helpful. I honestly don't think there's a screen big enough for me to work off of, so that's why I can't have to go up there. No, it's okay.
I missed how you did the fade out.
Okay, yeah, no, I'll go through that again real fast. That's like, it's kind of an in the weeds thing, but it's also something you use a ton. So like I wanted to touch onto it real quick. I mean, again, I'm using plus and minus to zoom in and out. And I'm scrolling over. So again, there's that hard out right there, right? And so to do that, I'm gonna hit P, which is my pen tool. And you can see it right here. So normally we're on the arrow. Hit P. So if you don't have your tools, you can go up to Windows, and I think it should be called Tools. Yeah, Tools. Okay. I'll go big again. So we have our P, we have our pen tool. There is a white line in there. That's up here. I moved it up higher. But you see that white line that's moving up and down? That normally rests right below that top audio waveform. This is how we adjust the volume on it, right? We raise it up, it gets louder, we go down, it's inaudible. So say it's just right there in the middle. Again, I'm gonna hit P for my pen tool. I'm gonna click on the line, kind of where I want that fade out to start. And you're gonna see a blue little diamond kind of pop up right there. Right there. That's called a keyframe, right? We're animating. In this case, we're animating the audio in and out. And I click another one, and it usually be at the end, but you click it and you can move it up, and you see how that line moves up and down at an angle? That's a fade out. You can see it kind of ramping down. So visually you can see it. That kind of takes that volume from being kind of, you know, where it was, up audible, to not being anymore. And that fade out makes that drop like a little nicer, right? A little smoother, a little cleaner. It's not like a straight, you know, fall off a cliff type thing. Does that make sense? And everybody sees how you could use that in pretty helpful ways. Depending on the version of Premiere that you're on, I don't know what happened when Premiere upgraded. They used to have that line on the video part too, so you could do it on the video. It's not there anymore. But, so you can fade out your video that way. Another way you can do this, if you're not into the pen tool, I kind of prefer this method because it's a nice, even fade out, is you could, when you have that little arrow bracket there, control click on the end, right? This little window pops up, it says apply default transition. You can do that too, right? That will affect your video too. Oops, you gotta be able to see it. You see it's on the video part of it and the audio part of it?
Your pasta.
It's fading it out, right? If you click on just one, you can delete it, and it's just on your audio then. One reason I don't like it is I don't think that it fades out very smooth. What we call it doesn't ramp out very well, right? It kind of stays loud, and drops off like that almost, where ours kind of can go at an angle, right? So we can control that.
This is detailed. The L and the R on the audio, you're only fading one, or are you fading?
Yeah, so this is a mono file, so it's there are two tracks there,
okay.
but so it's just affecting the one. Yeah.
So it doesn't matter which one.
Well, there's only one to work off of, right? So it's going to send it left, and it's sending it to your left and right channels, the same file.
Okay.
So that's all it's doing there. Yeah, if I had, when it comes into my camera, I have actually 4 channels, and so you'd have to go in and do that on each channel, right? In this case, I only put out one audio track because I converted this smaller. I think the file you guys downloaded was like 2 gigs. I think on my computer it's like something like 40 or 50 gigs.
What's the advantage of using the pen fade versus like the effect controls exponential fade?
Just control.
Okay.
Yeah, and I think this is faster. Like you hit P, boom, boom, you're moving on. And you know, you can see this change reflected in our effect controls panel. You guys don't need to know that, but you can kind of see these right there. So, okay, so we got 2 clips down. We're gonna make up some ground right here. Again, I am just pasting that time code in, adding a couple zeros. I'm hitting a colon because it's all there. And in theory, if you had the time code, you just want to punch it in. You don't have to put those colons in there. Not in theory, but you wouldn't have to do that. So I know this is at the very end of the sequence here. Every small improvement. I'm just gonna jump ahead a little bit.
Use more than 700 million tons of wheat every year in the world, and provides basically 1/5 of all the protein and all the energy that we use every day, every human being using
Okay, go back to that.
in the world. So every small improvement that you can make in wheat can have an important impact in the life of a lot of people.
Cool. So I hit the in and the out point to get that. And I'm gonna drag it back down again. You guys can kind of see too how he's moving his hand over the wheat. Like if I had a boom again, or if I had a different kind of mic, a shotgun mic even, you would pick that up a little bit more than what's being picked up right now.
So there's a whole aspect of things. And in my lab, rather than define ourselves by a trait or we are a biochemist, so our objective is very.
Okay. So again, I know he's going to start at our objective, and I'm probably going to go into this audio waveform, make the window big again, and try to find out what I'm looking for. Plus and minus makes that audio waveform go in and out. We're zooming in right there. Cool. And so you can kind of see where it stops, right? A lot of people tend to blend words and stuff like that. Sometimes you have to, go right in the middle of maybe a waveform. He's pretty good about being clear. The words do run together, but you can kind of see visually that there's enough of a valley there for us to kind of just sneak in there. Hitting my in key, my I for in.
Our objective is very simple. We want better widths in everything. We want better quality.
I can't remember the whole line now. And again, I'm just hitting play with spacebar too.
We want better nutrition. We want less allergenicity of wheat for people that have allergies to wheat. We want more resistance to pathogens. We want more efficient use of the resources that we use. So anything that gives value to.
Okay, I think that's pretty much it. Yeah.
If you're recording in a room and you don't do a very good job of pre-production, post-production, how can you get rid of echo?
So echo, you're kind of stuck with echo. That's really hard to get rid of. And because what's happening is, so like essentially recording the sound twice, right? You're recording that voice twice. You're recording it from them and then that bounce back off the wall, essentially. That's why you'd have an echo, right? Because you're off a wall. So it's hard. You can't take out that second voice, right? So it's always going to kind of be there. So we always just try to make sure that's one of the big things we look for. Yeah. Okay, so this is my process. I just kind of go through and I pick out different, pick out the sound bites that I want. I did not have a transcription when we put this together, but so I listened to the whole thing, sub-clipped it as I went through, and sometimes that really works really well if you go back and listen to it again because you kind of get back into that space of that video. So I just hit the end point just so I have a marker almost. If for some reason you wanted to make a mark on a clip that you're like, hey, I need to remember this spot, you can hit M. And you guys saw this little green thing pop up there? And that's just a marker on there. Yep.
So, with this transcript, you're saying, you can figure out how to fiddle with the minutes and put those in there.
Yeah.
I see that your transcript has the highlighted part. So the transcript I'm reading it at, right, that's really jumbled and scattered.
Yeah.
So you want to be able to pick out just the sentence that you need. How do you do this?
So there's a couple. So I went ahead and just like selected those clips out. Like, right, I knew like to make this presentation quicker, I highlighted stuff and I pulled out the quotes.
And you can do the same thing. I can just highlight right now.
Yeah. Well, what I'm doing is like I'm just fine. Essentially, if you're on that main transcript, what you can do is you can just, click on, is it highlighted on your guys' main transcript? It might not be. Okay. What you can do though, I'll leave this up though, if you guys go to this time code, right? So if you go to that time code, that 000559, that's your start, you can hunt from it from there.
I mean, like you highlighted out of that one there at 00252, that one right there.
Yep.
You're just using, out of all the things that he's saying right there, you're just using that what's highlighted?
I am, yeah.
And how do I do that?
How do you find that in there?
No, how do I pick out on that?
So,
I guess I'm not making sense. Anybody understand what I'm asking?
Do you mean like the specific message that?
Like, how do you decide which one you want?
No, so if I click on that minute right there, right,
Yeah.
2:45.
You have to listen to it until it gets to that line.
And then I'm gonna cut
And then
it.
you hit I.
Yeah.
I don't wanna hear everything else that he's saying, I just wanna hear the yellow.
yeah, you're probably going to hear a good chunk of it as you hunt for it. Yeah, so it's going to be in there. If you are using like that service, like that Trint, I keep talking about it just because it's so helpful. You can highlight in Trint, right? You can go through a project and highlight it all, and then it'll tell you the exact time code where like that butt is, right? And so you would just go to that immediately. For some reason, when you download it as a Word document, it only puts it at the quotes, the start of this quote, the time code. So you got to hunt through it. But here, maybe I could just bring it up. Okay, so nothing in here is highlighted, but there's this one should be highlighted. Yeah. So I have like parts that are highlighted. Why didn't it go to? No, it'll give you the time code right there, right? So if I highlight a part of it, like if I wanted to highlight this part, it gives you that start time code right there. So, and this is like, you can share it. It's brand new. Like they're still like trying to figure out kinks and stuff like that. I was actually super pumped when I like put a suggestion. They sent a survey out. They're like, hey, we need some suggestions for this. And I was like, I'm so used to hitting the play button to play stuff, but every time I hit the play button, it just put a space bar. So like they came out with an update recently that was like, if you hit command play, space bar and plays. I was like, oh, they're listening, right? Like, so they want you, they're trying to make it better always. And it's super helpful. And you can work in teams in this and stuff like that. So it's really good for that. But in this case, because when you download it as a Word document, the fact that you can download it as a Word document is great, right? If you try to download it any other way, it looks kind of jumbled. You just have to kind of search through it to find your quote that you want. All right, I'm going to just make this the last one.
Well, they are. So one main objective is to make it more productive, to in the same space produce more. So rather than have it's a rust that took in 2003 took 25% of all our wheat. So we have to put a lot of resistant genes into our varieties. Now they are resistant again. You have a bit.
Cool. So we're right there.
But it's a fight that we continue to fight. The pathogens continue to evolve, and we need to develop new resistance. So we are permanently fighting pathogens that also want to eat the wheat.
Cool. And so you can kind of see if you hear that quote on its own, how valuable it would be to like a video like this, right? So that's why we're jumping around and pulling stuff out. Okay, so I'm going to kind of stop that right there and move on to a different part, right? Okay, so say if you look at this quick script that I wrote, I have all my audio files kind of pulled out, right? I only have two more. Maybe I'll just go through those real fast so we have them. So this it is like it's a process to do this, right? Like as we go through, what's the line I'm looking at?
So they really have a struggle with that. When the problem came to California, and
So I'm just skipping ahead a little bit in that file in that selection in this quote just to get to the part that we need to get to.
Bagel, you like to eat your pizza, you like to eat your pasta. Wheat is so important because it provides roughly
Oops.
one
I'm in the project.
fast into our variety, so it makes you resilient. And
That's where it was right there. Zooming in.
it makes you resilient, and it makes you resilient. And in these times of climate change, resilience is important. So you need to be able to respond to changes fast. And without research, it's difficult to do it.
Cool. All right. So we're almost done right there. I'm going to make these guys a little bit closer. So you see, sometimes I'm kind of crossing over into here. I honestly have never used this before. So I'm guessing you can drop it on there. It's going to fill just that part of the screen, something like that. But I've never done that. So try at your own risk there. So there's one more quote. And then in my script, if you notice, I have text set out. So this is text. In the video that we saw edited, this was just like, this was all him talking and stuff like that. For the sake of time and because I want to show you guys that, we are just going to go ahead and do it that way. And then I'm just going to put one more quote and then we're going to move on. What time was that? 2:12. Yeah, there we go. So I just typed it in right there without anything.
The sense that your work is meaningful. The sense that your work is.
So there's no getting rid of that kind of stutter, right? That's just like, it's all blending in together.
It's that you are doing something that will be helpful for a lot of people, that you're making something that with your life that will help other human beings. I don't know, I think that for me is, and I enjoy it. I enjoy.
All right, we'll just cut out there, right? That is the end of that part. Okay, so now if you look at it, this is our A-roll, right? This is everything we need to have our interview. And so after this, we just start laying B-roll over. In this kind of type of video, there's not like a ton of, we shot in an afternoon, right? So it's whatever B-roll they'll capture out there in this wheat field. And honestly, that happens a lot. We have like an afternoon to shoot, and that's what you get. And so while the B-roll will be relevant to everything that's in there, it's maybe not exactly super specific to what he's saying, right? It is like, we're not showing like genomes of wheat, or we're not showing different varieties of wheat, at least that, a layman could identify, right? I know he knows like what different kind of wheats look like, but no, most people wouldn't know that. So to start doing B-roll, I'm just gonna kind of move through this quick because I know we're running out of time. It's the same process, right? I'm like, I need a couple seconds of some stuff, right? So I'm in and out points. And in this time, I'm not bringing down the audio. If I have music, and we're gonna have music in here, I usually don't take a lot of the B-roll audio with me. I just think it gets kind of cluttered down there. If it's really low music or I'm not using music, then yeah, I will take some of that audio. And here it's just like wind and birds and stuff like that. Oops. Again, I'm just clicking on that video clip. I'm just bringing down the video. So this is the start.
Well, tell me what
I'm changing exposures in there.
you have for breakfast.
And this is what I'm doing. I'm just kind of going looking for different clips, in and out. Oh, one thing I do want to note, you notice right here it says full, and right here it says half. This is the resolution that you're displaying at. If your machine is kind of, not moving very well, like it's like kind of slow, you can adjust your resolution there, and it'll play it at half resolution or a quarter. That's as low as it goes for this. All right, so we're just going to lay some B-roll. So you get the idea. We're laying B-roll over that. We want to cover a lot of those cuts. Oops, that's a really big clip. I try not to place my clip right at the end of another one. Like, I just feel like it really emphasizes that cut that we don't want. You know, we don't want to emphasize that. We want to let it.
With your pasta.
And
It is so important because it
you
provides.
know, it just brings less emphasis to, like, you know, your jump cut starting and stopping. So one thing I do want to bring up. So say we have a picture that we want to put in there, right? I'm gonna just take a screen grab picture from here because I don't think I have one in there. Or do I? I don't think I did. No, I did not. If you hit this little camera guy, it'll generate a picture. I just pick JPEG, and I name it something kind of relevant. Did I spell that? And import into project. I make sure to save it someplace where I can access it too. And into my images folder there, hit OK. I'm guessing put it in the project. All right, so there it is right there. So say we just want to have a picture in there. This could picture be anything, right? It's like, it doesn't have to be that. Maybe it's a picture of weed or something like that. There's some questions about how do we like make pictures kind of interesting, right? Because if you just play it, it's just an awkward picture of him staring at something, right? So maybe we want to push into it a little bit, right? Or we're going to put some movements into it. This is where we talk about a slow zoom, right? This is the Ken Burns effect, where we push in, we just do a slow zoom. That's mostly what I do. I try to tend to handle photos in a kind of more elegant way. I do try to fill the frame with them. Sometimes pictures just come to you small though, right? Like they took with their phone or they're kind of old. Again, you do what you can. Sometimes I will leave it over black like that. But say it's small and it's over his interview, right? So you don't have that black there. There's a couple different ways you can go about it, right? You can edit this file, right? You can unlink it and then, drag it there, right? So it's not there anymore. I don't like that. It's a little destructive. Say you want to make that change later on. It can be, I don't know, it can cause some issues. I'm going to link this back up. I always want to make sure my files are linked, right? So that if I move them, they move together. If they're unlinked, they move independent of each other, and then that's how your audio gets off, right? You have like this weird unsync. He's talking, but there's no audio, and then there's audio and he's not talking, type of stuff. One thing you can do is, I'm gonna make this big again. We're gonna move it up a level on our lines right there, right? And that leaves us a big space to put some other stuff there. Okay, so if I go to File, New, Black Video, that's just going to give me what it says. Just a little bit of black video right there, right? Oops. I'm going to take on that. I'm going to drag it. I'm going to try to drag it. There we go. Right underneath it. And then now I have black video under it, right? If I turn that thing off, now we have that black video, right? So we have something underneath it. You could always put, like say you need a color. We use blue a lot. You saw at the end of the export version, we use blue. So you can select, control click, new, color matte. Hit OK, and select your color. I forget what our color, our UCDavis blue is. And then you have that, right? You can put that there instead. Well, you'd want to delete that, but.
How did you find that blue?
I just picked it.
That's not fair. That was the UCD blue?
No, that's not the UCDavis blue. So if you have it, so again, you can go to our marketing toolbox. That's something that Strategic Communications manages, but it has all our colors on there. And I use it a lot. I reference it. I used to have those colors memorized, but
Well, that's what I was wondering.
then I just saved it.
I go to that toolbox a lot.
I have it like I go to it so much it's already up there, right? So this is our blue right here. You can get those CMYK values, or I just use this code usually.
The HTML.
Yeah, and you paste it there. That's our blue. No, that doesn't look good though. That's not a good version of our blue. The blue changes depending on what platform you are. If you go in here though, you will see our other colors, our secondary colors. I use these guys a ton as well if I just want to change things up a little bit. They're all there. And again, it's marketingtoolbox.ucdavis.edu. This is a good page where you'll find logos. You'll find the font that we use. We use Proxima Nova. You might have to pay for that, but that is our campus-wide font that we use.
So does campus provide those fonts for free at all?
No, as a department or a college, you have to purchase it. I think most of you do have it. You have it?
I actually want it, but the department
Okay. Talk to me. Send me an email.
won't.
Yeah, can we share fonts?
No. So yeah, so that's the font we use. If you don't have the font, I can send you the link to get it. But shoot me an email. And it's on our marketing toolbox as well. So it's all there. We did change font. Some of you guys might have had Futura. It's not too different from Futura, but it is different. How much did you say it cost? $15. That's pretty manageable, I feel like. Okay, so we have this picture, right? It's small. We have it on blue. You can make this white, whatever you want. Make it look kind of good, though. The reason you would do this is if that file size is just so small that if you blew it up, it got super pixelated. So make it a little bit smaller. These days, we can get away with some lower resolutions just because most people are watching it on their phone and they're seeing it in 480 anyways. And so everything looks better on that smaller screen. So it's not a huge deal. But say we want to push this in a little bit. Push in is meaning like a zoom, right? That Ken Burns effect. If you were on iMovie, it's a standard option on there. But what we're talking about adjusting the size, right? So we're going to adjust the scale. This is called keyframing. We did it a little bit with that audio. Not a little bit, we did it, right? We selected a point and we modified it with another point. And that's what we're going to do here, right? So I hit scale, that little stopwatch, and this little diamond shaped thing pops up, right? I'm going to put that right at the beginning. So that animation starts right at the very top of it. I'm like, all right, I'm going to push in just a little bit. It's at 60. It's at 63 right now. I'm going to push into like 60, 68, like 5, just to see what that looks like. How fast this will push in depends on how long your clip is, right? And how much space is between those two keyframes. And so this is what happens when you do it, right?
Thing that people consumes.
You see it's kind of moving in kind of slow in there.
Every small improvement that you can make.
I'm going to make that much more dramatic. So it's a big change. You can see it's small to big, right? You can see it's going to zoom in a lot faster.
People consumes every day. Every small improvement that you can make.
So that's not how I would handle that, but you guys see that. Like, so we're just pushing in a little bit into that. We do that with every image, right? And say this guy was a full frame. Also, if you click that stopwatch again, it's going to just take away. You hit OK. It'll take away those keyframes. No more actions. It's right there. Those keyframes, you can do that with anything, right? You can do it with position. So, okay, so that's starting at normal. And I'm going to move it down.
Every day.
You could do it there. Quick, easy animation.
Small improvement.
Oftentimes, if I am zooming in, chances are I am also changing the position. If I need to reset anything, I click that big reset button right there. Resets all of it, right? So I'm going to do a quick, very quick scale. Go 100 to 110. Oops. So 100. You got to move it to change it. 1. I know I'm also going to change these. Did I not change it?
Consumes every day.
Okay, so this has a position change and a zoom change, right?
Every small improvement that
That's pretty much how we're handling photos, right? And I do want to get text in there real fast. We got a couple more minutes. Set as my sequence. Okay. So this is just B-roll I'm pulling because I'm going to put text over that, right? So this is the spot we're going to have text. So they definitely changed this recently of how you handle text, right? There's a workspace for it. If you go to Window, oh, maybe they changed it again. Can't do it here. No, okay. This is like a big change in a recent update. So I go to New, and I go to Legacy Title. Again, this is telling you the size that your text is going to fit that window. You hit OK. And this is just where you can put text, right? So what was the text I wanted to say? Control C. All right, and so one super annoying thing, I don't know, there's probably a good reason for it, but it's always this weird gray. It's not always true white when you put it in there, so I always have to go in there and make it true white. Again, you change your font. We use Proxima Nova, regular, and then you adjust your size to what you think is going to work. I always thought if you have text on the screen, you want people to read it, that it's usually the star of the show there, so don't be afraid to make it nice and big. You have to see these two boxes here. So this inner box right there, that's called your title safe, right? This comes from like old broadcasting standards. Title safe means you want any sort of text in that inner box. This outer box is action safe, so any important action happening on screen, you want inside that larger box. Yeah, I'll go through that right now. So again, to get to that text, where did it save it at? Probably save in project. Okay, so we go to File, New, Legacy Title. They have a new way of doing this. This is the old way. I've just done it all the time. It used to be like really intuitive. Now that's kind of annoying. Again, so we're in this title area. We're going to hit T for text. I'm just pasting what I have. And so that's how we got there, right? And again, you want to make it white. The worst thing in the world is that you've gone through everything, you made all your titles, and you have a lot of titles in there, and they're all gray still. So you want to come make it white again. So do that at the very beginning. And then it just puts it right there in your project folder, right? And so all we're going to do, I'm going to put this down there. We're just drag it onto our timeline. As a default time of 4 seconds in like 23 frames or something like that. So you can make it longer or bigger. This is something you can add, apply your default transition. So that is a fade out in this case. So you can fade them in and out. Pretty straightforward, right? I do want to put music. If you guys go to your audio folder, sorry I'm moving a little quickly. I'll be around definitely after this for any specific questions that can come around. You see I do have my interview MP3. That's what I uploaded to Trint, was that. And then, so I import my music file. And you just click, I just click and drag that from there because I know I want it all. If you want to double click on it, you want to select a portion of it, you can do that just like you did with video in and out points. You're always going to drop your music down, right? And just generally speaking for me, you guys see those numbers at the bottom, like that gray box that's changing 16, 22. I'm kind of like in that. I'm looking at that. And that's usually, depending on the song, it could be anywhere from like, I don't know, it depends on the song. You're going to have to listen to it to kind of get an idea. Usually, though, it's in close to 20.
Well, tell me what you have for breakfast.
I'm going to make this a little bit bigger. When it comes to audio, we want his voice. So if I turn this off, can I mute that? we hit this little M that mutes that channel. We want his voice to be kind of right around -12 right there, right? You want to be a little bit more than that, but that's kind of like the zone you're aiming for.
This morning. Probably you have a bagel.
We're pretty close to that.
Pizza.
If you want to make it louder, you can. In general, like specific, we want to be like right around -9. That's very specific. But if you're around -12, since that's what's showing, that's pretty good. You don't want the music to overpower what he's saying.
Well, tell me what you have for breakfast this morning.
Which is kind of in there.
Probably you have a bagel. You like to eat your pizza.
This is where you're using that pen tool too when it comes to music, because we can kind of see how it's gonna get loud right there, right? It sounds pretty good right now. That might be a little too loud for that point. So I'm using that P tool and I'm bringing it down. And if you hold Alt as you bring it down, it'll move it down incrementally, like really more fine-tuned. You can see that ramp right there going down.
The calories and all the protein that people consume every day.
So it's pretty noticeable there. You guys hear that. And then, okay, so that's the music. And I'm gonna walk through exporting real fast. Okay, so to export, say, okay, we're all done. We got a good video here. There's a couple different ways to do it, just like in anything, right? You can go to File, Export, Media. That is one way. I usually, if you have this box, you see the blue, I will hit Command M, and it brings up our export window. So there's a couple different codecs the two main ones we use H.264, which is an MP4 file, right? For some reason, they put H.264 there, but that's pretty good. That's cross-platform. If you're using PowerPoints, this is your best option, right? Is to go with an H.264 file. It produces an MP4 as your container, right? H.264 is your codec. Other one is QuickTime, which would be your MOV file if you're on a Mac. So there are presets here. If you're like, okay, I'm at H.264, you can do Facebook HD, 1080, if you're doing that. There should be a YouTube version too. There's 4K on there. Tons of different ones, presets for you. Typically, I'm going to modify them a little bit, right? So again, we walk through. Our sequence is 1920 by 1080. Our files were 720 though. So it's like, all right, I'm going to change that. So I'm going to go to 720. And it'll automatically give you your width right there. Everything else usually kind of stays the same, right? The square pixels. If you wanted to change this and like this box is checked, you just uncheck that box and then you can change it. Sometimes that just locks in. Everything else should just stay the same. You usually shouldn't have to really mess with anything else except till you get down to your bit rates. Again, we go 2 pass with the bit rate just because that's really going to maybe dial in your file size. It can actually make it smaller by going through it twice. And then our bit rate, depending on where it's going, if I have 4K footage, my bit rate's higher. It's usually maybe around 10 or 12. If it's going to a TV station, it's really high. It's like 20. For YouTube, stuff like that, it's right around probably 8. And really what determines that is my file size, right? So right now, if you see right here, we have 243 megabytes is this file size. This video is, you can see that right there, 2 minutes long. It's a pretty good file size, right? And if I go down to like 4, you'll see that number shrink, right? The video is going to be less, it's going to be a less quality, right? There's not as much information in there. It's going to start blending colors together, right? So like maybe we have like a robin's egg blue in there, right? It's going to take that out and just say blue. So it'll make it smaller. But sometimes you just need it small. Sometimes, again, it doesn't matter because they're watching it on phones or something like that. There's a couple different things you could, and super important, I missed this part. So I'm going to hit where I'm going to save it, right? I click on that little output name, and I'm going to navigate to my export folder. Most of the time, I just click on the project to get that name, just because it's super fast. And I'm usually exporting at the last second before I have to get it out, so I'm just moving as quick as I can. Hit save, and there you go. Now, this is a preset that you're going to use a lot. You're like, okay, most of my files are going to be, 6. My bit rate is going to be 6 megabytes. megabits, bytes. And that's pretty general. You can go ahead and save your preset, right? And I just name it like, this is for, YouTube, whatever bitrate it was. I just save it, and I always have that right there to go. You can hit export, and it'll export to that spot. You can hit Q. Q is already highlighted. What this does is opens up Adobe Media Encoder. And Premiere actually uses this to export anyways internally. But it does queue this up. And if you do export through here, you would just hit play, and it'll export. It does free you up to go back into Premiere as well to use. Cool, so that's like the gist of it, right? Was there any specific questions you guys had? That was a lot, and really the only way to learn is to go through it.
Do you have good resources online to get more help?
Yeah, no, so,
Continue learning.
yeah, I mean, I can always recommend like lynda.com is always a really good one. Lynda.com? Yeah, Lynda. It is, you have to, LinkedIn owns it now. It is paid. Obviously, Adobe has actually some really good tutorials as well. If you go to adobe.com and to their helps in Premiere section, they have some, those are free, those are great. Most of the time you're running into specific problems. So just Google those. Usually, I'm still Googling all the time for stuff like that. But I would say the biggest thing is just to keep doing it. Like there's just no better teacher than experienced and kind of running into problems and figuring them out. And figuring out your workflow, to be honest, that's like, once you get your workflow down, that's how you move faster. When you have like a specific way you do things, that's where speed comes in.
Yeah, I'd like to just say, like, definitely Google is going to be your best friend. I taught myself how to do this. I wish I took this workshop like a year ago. It'd be much faster. And YouTube is another great resource too. A lot of people have YouTube tutorials, so definitely Google things. You're not alone in these problems.
And if you have anything, you can shoot me an email. Not a problem. Anything specific. I just want to make sure I touch on everything I want to.